What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of The Haven, a podcast where we focus on having healthy conversations about the world and our place in it. I'm your host, Skylar Allen, and today's focus and topic of conversation is actually coming from a request from a comment on my, I think it was TikTok, a comment on my TikTok page, asking about my journey of buying land and what that was like, how much it cost, and how other people can do it too. So that's what today's episode is going to be about. I'm going to tell you what my journey was like. We're going to talk a little bit about the intuition that led me through this process, what that process looked like, how I actually ended up investing in the land, and then I'll talk about some resources that you can use to invest in land if that's something that you're interested in or something you're actually ready to do. So stick around to the end for the resources. I'll also try to link it in the description below for you. But in the meantime, just sit back and enjoy, and I hope you enjoy the story of freedom and adventure that comes in this episode. All right, y'all, let's get into it. I think what is going to make this episode a little bit more meaningful and to bring a little bit more transparency and vulnerability into this conversation, I'm going to be referring back to some journals for timeline's sake and just to kind of reconnect with the stage of life I was in when all this was happening. And so you can see how things developed in life from making the decision to invest in land and how that opened so many doors for me in so many other ways. I spent some time reading through my journals. I have quite a lot. I've been a lifelong journaler, and I'm 27 now, so there's been quite a few to reread. But I was able to narrow down just for context sake. So stick with me here. I promise if you're here for the investment of land, we will get there. But you need to know a little bit about my journey first and what that meant for me before the rest of the story comes out. So thank you for listening and for sticking with me. So it was the summer of 2021 that I actually made that investment, and it was late winter, early spring of 2022 that I actually hit the road and started moving out west. I stayed with my sister in Arizona for a few months and then got to Colorado by end of May in 2022. And Colorado is where I invested in land. So just to thread together my life history at that time, 2020 obviously was COVID. My sister was living in Oregon at the time. I was living in Virginia. My sister and I are very, very close. That's my home skillet biscuit. That's my dog. That's my friend for life. That's my twin. That's my girl. You know what I'm saying? So we're very close. It was really difficult to live on separate coasts from each other. We're 10 years apart in age, which I only mention because it helps me with my mental math of like where the years were. It was my, I think, freshman or sophomore year of high school, she moved to Oregon. And by 2020, I was 21. So we'd been living apart for at least that long. And she'd been asking me the whole time, or not asking, but she'd been offering the whole time that anytime you want to come, you're welcome. She was trying to get me to go to school out there. So I had always wanted to follow her out there. I just didn't know when the time would be right to do that. So 2020 rolls around, the whole world shuts down, as you may remember. We started getting those government stimulus checks started coming in, and I lost all my jobs because of COVID, which was fine with me. I was on a personal health journey. I was on a recovery journey. 2019 was hard for me emotionally. I was going through a very heartbreaking separation from somebody I cared about. Life was weird. Like I was restarting again, and there was a weirdness happening for me in 2019 and into 2020. So the shutdown was really healing for me in a lot of ways. I was able to focus on myself, my routines, my health habits, and things like that. So in that space of working on myself and being healthy, I decided, you know what? Why don't I just move to see my sister? So I called her up and I told her I was interested in moving, and she booked a flight for the next week to come home. And then we took a road trip together across the country, and I moved in with her in Oregon, which was awesome, by the way. And that should be a separate episode of what that like road trip out west for the first time was like during COVID. We camped pretty much the whole way. It was so freaking fun, but that's beside the point. So that's where we're at in 2020. I'm there for like 6 or 7 months, something like that. It's not really working out for me in Oregon. I was working as a caregiver at the time. My client was 101, and she was amazing. But she had passed away, and that was really hard for me. And I was having a hard time finding other jobs and just finding a sense of direction and purpose in general in Oregon. I think it was just like an adventurous thing for me, and I wanted to see the country. I wanted to be with my sister, but there was nothing of my own like status or interest that I could get going for me there. So, and my like mental health started to decline again. So I decided I was going to move back east and hit the drawing board again. So it's late in 2020. It's probably November of 2020. I moved back to Virginia. November, December, January, February, like into the spring of 2021, I am depressed. It is a hard time in the neighborhood for me. But in that time of being back at the bottom of the food chain again, when it comes to like work and career path and life path and not knowing what the heck was going on and dealing with disappointment and mental health and all these things, I was really had to work hard on healing my mental state, my emotional state, my thought patterns, my belief systems. And at that time, kind of started feeling like, okay, well, if Oregon didn't work out, let me be more intentional the next time I decide to move out of my parents' house. Because I was bound and determined I could not handle another out and back from their house. I think this had probably been like the third time since graduating high school that I'd been out and back to my parents' house. And I just couldn't do that again. Not because that my parents aren't great, but when you become an adult and you have to continue to move back into your parents' house after failed adventures out, it sucks. And it makes you feel not so good about yourself. So when I hit the drawing board again, I started to be much more intentional. I created a vision board and started thinking about Colorado, and I was so pulled to it for no dang good reason. I'd never been to Colorado. I didn't know anybody from Colorado. I didn't know why I was being pulled there, but it was something so deep in my bones. It just kept whispering to me. So on my vision board, I printed out a picture of a mountain range from Colorado, and I pinned that on my board, and different pictures and different vibes that I was just feeling called to. Okay, so that goes on my vision board. I mentioned that for a reason. So remember this mountain range that's pinned on my vision board. So the vision board is in existence by early 2021. And let's see, if you hear flipping, it's because I have 17,000 journals in front of me. And I was debating on what to read to you and what you don't need to hear. So in 2021 was like the year of manifestation and vision work and just saving money, working, and experiencing life. By late summer, early fall of 2021, I actually invested in some land in Colorado, sight unseen, never having been there, didn't know what was going on. It was very much an intuition-based, divinely guided occasion in my life. And for a little bit of context, I had always dreamed of homesteading, having my own land, building on it, and like living self-sustainably and self-sufficiently. So that's always been a dream of mine. Purchasing land was not a new idea or new concept to me, but actually taking action on it is something that happened very quickly. So I want to say it was September-ish of 2021. I had been subscribed to a website called LandWatch, which nothing is sponsored, by the way. So anything that you hear me talk about is just genuinely out of my own experience and not sponsored by other people. But I had been subscribed to LandWatch for probably like 6 to 12 months prior. Like I was just so genuinely interested in purchasing land in so many different states that I'd explored at this point. And LandWatch shows you different plots and parcels of land that are undeveloped all over the country. So you can kind of see where you can get the best bang for your buck, what type of resources you're looking for, what type of what you're actually interested in. You can just see different plots that are available all around the country so you can kind of get an idea of what your needs and goals are. Okay, so LandWatch, at the time, I'm not sure if they still are, was working with a website called governmentauction.com, which is not a government official site, but they have been in business for quite a while. And what they do is they basically buy land in bulk, whether it was foreclosed land or just big blocks of land that the government doesn't need or has no plans of doing anything with. So they buy in bulk and then they divide it up and then they resell those plots of land. Okay, so LandWatch took me to government auction when I was ready to actually start putting numbers down and investing in things. That was just my process, but you can find places like that through different home sites like Zillow or realtors.com or homes.com. Those are different places where you can search for pieces of land that are for sale, undeveloped. So that's an example of how you can like directly go to purchase. Governmentauction.com is auction-based, so it's bidding-based. So it's like highest bidder wins, just for context, but we'll get more into that later. So governmentauction.com, I'm browsing. I end up finding a 5-acre lot in southern Colorado, like real south. It's in Casilla County, kind of 45 minutes away from the National Sand Dunes, if anybody's familiar with that. And it's less than an hour, about 45 minutes from the border of New Mexico. So just to give you a general idea of where this plot of land is. And if you're not going to look that up, I can tell you it's in the middle of the Colorado desert. There's absolutely no big anything down there. It's like population 12 and nothing, very desolate, which I quite enjoy. And that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking for land. It's something that's away from people, away from cities, no pollution, no noise, quiet and calm. So that was my parameter of like what I was looking to invest in eventually. So I find this 5-acre lot. It was just under $10,000. And the bidding is like bidding to win the rights to the land. And then you just set up like a payment plan to pay it off if you can't pay it off all at once. And at the end of your payment agreement, then you get the deed to the land and it's officially in your name. So I did a 5 or 6 year, it must have been 5-year, because I'll be done paying it this year. And that was 5 years ago. So yeah, that makes sense. Checks out. Anyway, I end up making a bid with this person. I'm getting really excited telling you this story. I'm mixing myself up. I find this 5-acre lot, less than $10,000, nothing on it. There's a beautiful, like, the pictures on the website weren't able to give me like an exact view because nobody's going into latitude and longitude specific plots for everything that they offer. So they give you like an estimation of what the view looks like. And I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. You can see mountains. It's desolate. It's gorgeous, whatever. So one other person is looking at this bid and they started a bid at $1. I was like, hell yeah, come on. That's the type of money I have to play with. So me and this other person, I think the bid was live for maybe like 24 hours or something, and we went back and forth in $2 increments for like 12 hours. Not consistently, but like in between like 30 minutes, an hour, a couple hours in between life, we were just bidding back and forth. And me and this other person were duking it out cheaply. Like they started at $1, I went to 3, they went to 5, I went to 7, they went to 9, I went to 11, and we just increased the increment by $2 until the end. And luckily, I ended up winning that bid. My winning bid was a whopping $17, which is so cool. When I told that story in real life to people when I first moved to Colorado, I would tell them that story and they'd be like, you did not win 5 acres of land for $17. And I'm like, you're right. I know I set that story up to sound like it, but my winning bid was $17 to take over payments on the land. So once I won the auction, then I started moving into the paperwork of arranging an agreement, doing a one-time process fee, which I think was like $200 or something like that. And then my monthly payment is about $150 that I've been paying monthly for 5 years. So in theory, it should be paid off this year, assuming finances continue to go well and we can pay that off. So once it's paid off, you get the deed, it's in your name. So remember, I made that decision to invest in this land sight unseen, never having been to Colorado before. But this was happening towards the end of 2021. And I told you that year was my vision work year, and I was starting to think about moving out west, and I was starting to put a plan together and think about how I was going to get there. And then when the land came into play, I was like, oh, shoot, dang, well, I'm going to get out there somehow, some way eventually, and at the very least, at least I'll have a place to camp. I, at the time, did not realize how far south it was from any type of opportunity, so it's not like I can live there, really, and make money, or at least not in the traditional sense. So, but that didn't matter to me. It was just about having a space that was just for me in the world. And I was so excited about that. And I continue to be excited about that. So that's how the land came about. And for some of you, that may be all you're interested in hearing in this episode. And if that's the case, then long story short, it's a matter of finding out where you want to be and looking into the tools and resources to finance it And it's super, super possible. It's not as complicated as people think. But the bigger picture about this story is how much my intuition was guiding me towards being in Colorado, having a plot of land come up, having a bidder that happened to be offering bids so low. Because, by the way, there's typically thousands of people who are bidding, and the bids get up to tens of thousands of dollars. So it's something I was always looking at, but never really could participate in. So it was definitely divinely guided that this opportunity had come up and I was able to participate in it and could finance it. So from that point of getting the land in September-ish of 2021, I didn't actually move to Colorado until the end of May of 2022. And you may be thinking, well, what the heck were you doing in between? I was still healing about life. I was in a relationship back home at the time that was super unhealthy and very draining and triggering in a lot of ways, but it caused me to leave and abandon the plan and the vision board that I had put together on how I was going to get to Colorado. I was going to move out here with my best friend and we were going to come out together. But my life changed all in an instant because of the idea of this land that I had in Colorado. When my life had gotten to a point where it just felt so heavy, I realized I didn't need to be waiting for permission or waiting for the stars to align anymore before I made my move. So I kind of just got to a point after the holidays, very early in the new year. It was like February, end of January, February, where I was like, F this, I'm out. And didn't need any permission from anybody. And I packed up everything in my car and I hit the road. I went to my grandparents' house. My papa helped me repack my car. And then he hit the road with me and I moved to Arizona to be with my sister just to get away from my circumstances because I was not in a good place in life at that point. And I hadn't put a plan together, but I knew eventually I wanted to get to Colorado. My sister was in Arizona. She was in a neighboring state. I felt life was going to become more clear if I just went out west. And even though I didn't have a plan or a whole lot of money, I just went out west. So I stayed with my sister in Arizona from like February to March of 2022. No, I'm a liar. From February to May of 2022. And in that time, I was saving my money. I worked as a house cleaner, which was actually super cool. And house cleaner for the rich. I saw some really cool homes, including some football player homes for the Arizona Cardinals, but that's another story. Yeah, and I saved up just enough money to make the move out in Colorado. And in the time of moving out to Arizona, I still didn't have a plan or knew how I was going to get to Colorado, but I was so determined it was going to happen. And I've talked about from this point in the journey, there's a podcast episode and some other videos on my social media about the journey of like moving to Colorado and how all that came about. But for those of you who've heard this story before, apologies for repeating myself. For those of you who haven't, just to catch you up at this point in my life, I've got the land. I still haven't seen it yet. And I'm living in Arizona and I'm saving my money. I don't know how I'm going to get to Colorado, but it's still in my vision. And I have in front of me a journal that says Future Visions 2022, and Colorado is written all over the place. I'm talking about financial stability and security. I'm talking about travel. I'm talking about soul tribe. I'm talking about meaningful work and holistic care and hands-on healing. So these are like my manifestations that I was feeling for myself in 2022. It comes down to the month of May, where literally everything changed for me in an instant. It was like boom, 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 boom. The universe just lined me up. And the whole time I was operating from a place of faith and trust in my intuition and in the universe and in God, guardian angels, if you believe in that. But I was just operating in a place of faith and trust in the universe and in myself that everything was going to work out, even though I had no idea what the future looked like from day to day, let alone the next couple months or throughout the rest of the year. So I end up interviewing for a company who I will not name for multiple reasons, but I end up interviewing with a company that gives me an opportunity to work hands-on in the healing industry. And I'm super stoked about that. That feels very aligned with what I want to do. The interviewing process goes really well. I interviewed with the owner, the general manager. It went really well. I really liked the people that I was talking to. They felt like people I would be aligned with and could be close to and just the type of energy of people that I wanted to be around, because that was a huge thing for me, because I'd been surrounded by people I was not aligned with and were sucking me dry and making me just so unhappy. That soul tribe and like meaningful connections was huge on my manifestations. So I felt really good about it. And they basically offered me the job and they said, if you can get here by our training, which was Monday, May 23rd, 2022. I was like, okay, thank you so much for the offer. If I could twist your arm kindly into writing me an official employment letter so it'll help me find a place to live. Because I got the job, sweet. Didn't have a place to live. That was my next thing. And I was willing to sleep in my car in the Walmart parking lot if I had to just to get there. And I would have. Luckily, it came down to the Friday before. It was Friday, May 20th. I found a room to rent off of roomies.com, which is so sketchy and I would not recommend that. But it worked out for me. And I moved into a spare bedroom of a lady's house who was super cool. And she was recently divorced and she had a young son who was very sweet. And I did enjoy living with a little one. But she basically was like, yeah, this will work. You can rent the room on a month-to-month basis. And that worked really well for me because I didn't know what my life was looking like. I ended up finding the place on a Friday, moved there on Sunday, just in time for the training that was starting on Monday. So I got there Sunday night, slept, woke up, started training the next day. By lunchtime, the day of training, I knew that I was in the right place. And I'd like to read you a journal entry that I wrote on May 23rd, 2022, which was the first day of training. May 23rd, 2022. I made it to Colorado last night. Today is my first day training at Zoop Zoop Zoop. That was me bleeping myself. I felt right at home as soon as I got there. Everyone I'm training with is super awesome, and blank greeted me with the biggest squeezes and warmest welcomes. I can tell I'm right where I should be, and I'm so excited to be a part of this franchise. I know this will lead me in such a beautiful, wonderful, aligned direction. Thank you, Spirit, angels, archangels, and ascended masters, for guiding me here, blessing me with beautiful company, and keeping me safe. With all my love and gratitude, thank you for everything you do, have done, and everything I have yet to see. Amen. So I wrote myself a little thank you prayer for getting me there safely and just being so genuinely excited. I have another journal entry of my explorations, and there's lots of different things of my little travels. I have like a little travel journal book, but it's really beautiful for me to look back on these journal entries over the years and remember so personally what it felt like to go through the process and how much it relied on intuition, faith, and trust in myself and in the universe and in God and whatever way you want to identify God. But there was a level of faith and trust in the intuition, and to see what came of my life from trusting my intuition is so incredible now. To fast forward to present day, February of 2026, the Skylar then had no idea how beautiful it was going to get in Colorado, but I did know that it was going to be beautiful. And to bring it to present day, I worked at that job that hired me from afar for about 3.5 years. I had 3 promotions in 3.5 years, got to the tippy top of what I was doing, was able to put myself through a coaching program and get Reiki certified and get to a place where I was able to start my own business, which goes way back in my journal entries of years and years and years of manifesting, buying my own land, starting a healing center, starting a business, being a practitioner, a holistic coach. Like, all of these things were written on my vision boards and in my journal entries, and they all came to fruition. The picture, if you remember in the beginning of this episode, that I printed out and put on my vision board is the exact view from my land. Since being in Colorado, obviously I have gone down to see it. I've camped many times down there, and it's so beautiful. The stars are unlike anything you've ever seen before. It's so quiet, which is so refreshing. There's no noise from the cities or neighborhoods or people or dogs. It's so serene and tranquil and beautiful. It's a little haunted, spooky, but that's also for another separate story. But it's mostly very beautiful and calming. I've met the best friends I've ever had in my life who are so, so close to me. They're like family, and I have no doubts they're going to be in my life forever. I've been in the healthiest, longest relationship I've ever been in since moving here, and everything worked out better than I thought it was going to. But it was all because I trusted that intuition of, hey, there's something in Colorado. that I'm feeling called to, even though I've never been there and I don't know why. Oh, hey, there's some land available in Colorado, even though I'm not able to see it and see if it's actually worth it. Let me put some money down. Sight unseen. These are the type of intuitive, faith-based decisions that I was able to make that opened up all the things in my life that have been the best things that have ever happened to me thus far at 27 years old. So if you take anything away from this episode, I hope it's that leaning into your intuition and making decisions from a place of a gut feeling could be the best thing that you ever do for your life. Whether it be putting you in environments that are better for you, giving you opportunities that are going to be more financially fruitful for you or emotionally fulfilling for you, or get you in connection with your soul tribe. You never know what's waiting for you based off of that gut decision, but it's something that you should listen to. And to bring it back to the folks who are really only interested in how to invest in land, again, it's a matter of considering where you want to be. And the things that you should consider are, am I going to be farming, cultivating, living off of my own land, ranching? What kinds of places and agricultures are going to allow for me to sustain that type of lifestyle and maintain that type of lifestyle? So where in the country or in the world do I think I can survive off of the land? And how far do I want to be from cities, towns, and people? Do I want to be more secluded or do I want to be closer? That's definitely going to affect like your price point, how much you're willing to spend. How much space do I actually need? Like 5 acres, when you stand on it, it's a lot of open space. It really depends on your goals. Other things to consider are zoning, which you would find out through your county, particularly, to figure out what they're going to allow you to build on the land that you've invested on. Like, for example, the zoning down south on the land that I have is only residential. So no commercial buildings, no businesses. I can't build up anything too complicated or crazy. It's just residential zoning for homes. Do you want to be close to water? How important is the view? Do you want to be in nature? Do you want to be closer to cities? So those are things to consider before investing. I would also definitely recommend actually visiting plots or parcels of land so you can see it in person and see what you like, and to practice using your intuition. And once you're there, being like, ooh, does this feel right to me? And then the other things to consider are where you're going to invest, like who you're going to be working with to invest in this land. So like I said, I was looking for places at LandWatch just to get an idea of what was around. They were working with government auction at the time, which led me to auctioning and bidding for the land that I got. That worked fine for me. I financed a 5-year payment plan. Worked well for me. Or you could work directly with purchasing from realtors, or I'm sure you could even work directly with your state, but I'll link different sites that you can look at for land's sake, just to peruse. And then there'll be options to invest more directly if that's something you're actually interested in and ready to do as of today. But it's super easy. It shouldn't be very complicated. It shouldn't be super confusing. If I could do it, you can do it. I promise you. Because I had no business doing what I was doing, and it was real easy. And now here we are 5 years later, and it's almost paid off. So that is all for today, y'all. I'm looking at my time here, and we've gone over 31 minutes of me just yapping. I'm sure it'll be less than that by the time I edit things out, but I'm so appreciative that you guys took the time to listen to this ramble and this story time of what it was like for me to get to a point in life where I was ready to invest in property and what that property turned out to be in my life. And although the property itself is only currently for camping trips, I know that eventually the intention is to make it a camp spot for anybody traveling, because it's beautiful and I want to share that with people. Maybe long term there could be partial part-time living situation, or maybe a renting it out living situation, but either way, it's fulfilled my needs and has opened up my life in a way that has been so adventurous and so meaningful and so fun. And I'm so grateful that people are interested in hearing this story. Hopefully it's inspiring to you in some way. If you have any other questions that you'd like to ask me, I would love to hear from you and connect more about this story if it's interesting to you. You can reach out to me directly at love@skyhavenhealing.com. That is my professional business email that I check daily, frequently, often. So you can reach me directly there, or you can follow me on social media at Sky Haven Healing on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can DM me on any of those appropriate platforms as well. You can post on my wall to connect if you'd rather do that. You can leave me a comment on any of my videos. I'm very reachable. And if you go to my website, skyhavenhealing.com, you can send in your information for me to contact you if you'd like to go that route as well. That is all for me today, my friends. I'm very appreciative of your time and for listening and for taking an interest in what I have to say. It is so fun for me to reflect back on this journey and share it with you all. I hope you have a glorious day and you do something nice for yourself or somebody else. Take care of yourself. Until next time, my friends. Love you. Bye.